heading to Gakungu village in Thiba ward last night was overwhelmed by flood waters. Residents of Kasarani and Gakungu villages, led by Gakungu village administrator Julius Mushiri, reported that heavy rains started around 7 p.m, causing flooding in the low-lying area where Sophia Marigu was forced to cross and met her demise. Efforts by residents to help her were unsuccessful. Now, Marigu's body was found by a resident who was crossing, and the residents urged the government to expedite the construction of the Gakungu bridge.
Na huyu mwenye ametolewa kwa mto ni mamangu mzazi. Sasa mama alikuwa anatoka soko ya alikuwa ametoka town ya Gurubani Mwea akikuja kijiji inaitwa Gakungu, na akufukia kwa main bridge ya Thiba sababu nayo imejaa, imefurika na maji haiwezi kafukika. Sasa alikuwa amesunguka kupitia main, lakini sababu ya mvua mingi ilionyesha jana jioni akapata hiyo mto ya Gakungu imefurika na
Now, apologies about that subheading. It is not Ajuza, that's Kiswahili, but it is a 60-year-old woman. Now, former Murang'a County Governor Mwangi wa Iria, who was expected to appear before the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission, did not show up due to reasons cited by his lawyers to the EACC, and an agreement was reached for him to appear this Wednesday. Wairia is facing corruption allegations of 140 million shillings during his tenure as Murang'a County Governor. Now, Wairia, along with 7 others, is being sought following the authorization of his prosecution by the Office of the Director of Public Prosecutions. Now, these allegations relate to procurement made between 2015 and 2016 during his tenure.
We have agreed that he comes tomorrow. And then he was coming by invitation. He was not under arrest. There was no summon, and there was no warrant. So we have reached an understanding that he comes tomorrow.
In future, there is no need for harassment or embarrassment or intimidation of the leaders when there are matters such as this. Just an invite or summons to a particular place at a given time will do. What we experienced yesterday, and I had expressed this to the DPP. We were hosting Governor Mwangi wa Iria in Western on Sunday. We were invited to a church in Bumini Catholic Church in Mumias East, Kakamega County, and the harassment began there.
Our client will be presented before the commission for processing and onward transmission for other court processes tomorrow. And that is the only basis upon which we have been able to secure our day tomorrow. And we still want to give our undertaking and to tell the country not to be anxious of anything. This is a legal process that will run its full course.
Former Director of National Museums in the country, Mzalendo Kibunjia, and 4 others have been arraigned in court on charges of embezzling over 400 million shillings of public funds. The 4 were charged and released on a bail of 5 million shillings each, or a bond of 10 million and a surety of a similar amount. Others arrested with Kibunjia include Stanvas Ongalo, Oliver Rabor, Wycliffe Ongaya, and Oscar Mwaura. According to the prosecution, the public funds were fraudulently disbursed as salaries and allowances to individuals purported to be employees of the national museums in the country. They have been instructed to submit their travel documents to the court and not to communicate with witnesses who will be used by the prosecution. He was released on a bail of 5 million shillings.
Kenya shillings 49,885,476. Being public funds fraudulently paid as salaries and gratuity to persons purportedly employed by the National Museum of Kenya. Is it true, or not true? Stanvas Ongalo?
No, not true.
Oliver Abor? Wycliffe Ongata? Oscar Mwaura? Count number 3, abuse of office contrary to section 46 as read with section 48 of ASECA, number 3 of 2 or 3, particulars being Mzalendo Kibunja between June 2016 and 1st February 2022 within Nairobi City County in the Republic of Kenya, being the Director General of National Museums of Kenya, a person whose functions concern the administration of public revenue used your office to improperly confer a benefit of 441,392.75 shillings as salaries and gratuity to persons purportedly employed by the National Museums of Kenya. Is it not or not true?
Your Honor, not true.
Count number 4, in respect to accused number 2, abuse of office contrary to section 46 as read with section 48 as second, number 3 of 2 of 3, particulars of the offense February 2022 and 1st July 2022 within Nairobi City County in the Republic of Kenya, being acting director.
Now, Cabinet Secretary for Education Ezekiel Machogu announced that the government has made necessary preparations for grade 9 studies, which will be under the jurisdiction of primary schools to advance the new education system in the country, that is the CBC. In addition to this, Machogu said the government will employ 20,000 secondary school teachers and add 15,000 more classrooms for grade 9 students in primary schools.
We have 23,200 participants participating this year. Last year in Mombasa, we had only 15,000. So you can see the exponential growth of the participants.
In actual fact, even as a means of education, the kind of allocation that we used to get in order to conduct and undertake this particular activity was so minimal, but now the government has been able to enhance that particular allocation. And also even moving forward, we are not now going to have this activity only within the country. We will also be able to have competitions in the region, like the East African region. We are now, as Kenya, moving out to train other countries within the region, also encouraging other countries, because the only other country we have been competing with.
Cabinet Secretary for Tourism and Wildlife, Dr. Alfred Mutua, issued a stern warning to hotels, especially tourists, or the ones that host tourists, stating that they will be downgraded and some closed due to poor services provided. While in Narok West, Mutua said senior officials misrepresented the national government over the services of tourist hotels in the country. However, Mutua addressed the issue of compensating wildlife victims, stating that the government has allocated 70 million for victims within Narok County.
Wale ambao wameharibiwa mimea na wanyama, we are doing 70 million to Narok County, especially to this area. You may wish to run your own hotel. You may need to run your own system or something that makes you money as yourself without alafu donor funding, kazi yao ni kuongezea.
Apart from housing, affordable housing, tunajenga pia what we call institutional housing, which is hostels. So I think through the team mutaongea na PS na CS wa housing ndio mupate hawa watu waletewe manyumba hapa.
It's about time tupate college yetu ambaye itatrain watoto wetu waweze kupata zile skills ambazo zinatakikana ili hao waangwana wasituulize tena tuna hii.
At the National Salary Conference on its second day, the Controller and Auditor General of the National Budget, Margaret Nyakango, highlighted some factors contributing to the increasing burden of public service salaries in the country, significantly affecting national development projects. Speaking at the national conference in Nairobi, Nyakango mentioned many allowances being given out, payments to ghost workers and payments to non-performing employees, which increases the wage bill at the county level.
Integrating systems like the IFMIS that we have right now with the IPPD. Why do we have them as standalone systems? This would solve the wage bill accuracy issue. I do know that currently we have been insisting that all the employees to be put up on the IPPD. The next thing would be to connect this to IFMIS, and then we should be in a position now to get our reconciliations right. Then manual payroll systems introduce computational errors, and we know that. We also know that ghost workers come in either by design or default. We are insisting that new employees on IPPD be all registered and that the process be quickened.
All right, let's take a look at the newspapers. We'll begin with the Standard newspaper. School fee, why MPs oppose e-citizen way. Now, a new hurdle where President William Ruto's plan to have school fees channeled through a single e-citizen pay bill number, a move already suspended by court, has suffered a second blow after MPs appeared to reject it, saying it will disrupt school finances. Why MPs oppose the e-citizen way of paying school fees? Now, there were plans by President William Ruto's administration to have parents single their, school fee payment through one platform, and that is the e-citizen pay bill number. Now, this is a story that is on page 4 of the Standard this morning. Now, and it says, President William Ruto suffered a blow after members of parliament opposed a directive requiring parents to pay school fees through the e-citizen platform. The plan, which had already been halted by a court order, faced strong criticism from legislators who argued it would place an undue financial burden on parents and could disrupt operations due to delays in accessing the funds. Now, during a session with Immigration and Citizen Services Principal Secretary, that is Julius Bitok, the National Assembly Committee on Education raised concerns about the viability of the plan to collect fees through the government platform. So that is the headline that has made it to the top of the headline of the Standard this morning. Now, just a quick reminder about the government's plan on, digitizing as well as having a single pay bill number. That means, if you want your driving license, there's a one pay bill number where you channel, the fee that you're required to pay. If you want your identity card, that is where you have to go as well. If you want to access any other services through the e-citizen platform, there was one pay bill number that you're required to submit your charges. And there was now there was a plan to introduce school fees. That means, if you're paying 50,000 shillings in a year, all through that year, you'll be paying through that one platform. However, there is, rejection over that plan by members of parliament who say, this will put some duress on schools, particularly with the finances, because they also depend on funding from the government. Aside from the school fees as a parent that you pay, they also depend on some of the finances from the government, because each learner is sponsored by the government, and there's an amount of money the government pays on your behalf. Now, further doubts were raised by Kitutu Masaba Member of Parliament, Cleve Gisairo, arguing that the e-citizen requirement would not prevent schools from soliciting additional fees outside the platform. He further questioned the service charge levied to users, noting it will be an additional burden to the parents. So that is the latest on the education sector, where school fee and why MPs oppose e-citizen way. Also, top of the Standard newspaper this morning, no end in sight, doctors press on with protests. If you look at the placard on the top of the page, which says it is the poor patients suffering and dying, the rich have got medical covers. Pay doctors, pay or post interns. So no end in sight. Doctors proceed or continue with their protests, even as the government has remained adamant that they will not be adding any salaries. And we've listened as well to the CS for Health, Susan Nahumicha, who yesterday, said the government is, taking the time and bidding their time just to come up with the best solution. Also within the health sector, SAC Nahumicha women MPs tell Ruto over Linda Mama mess. Now women members of parliament now want Ruto to sack Nahumicha. On Tuesday, more than 10 women leaders expressed concern over the halt of the Linda Mama program by the Ministry of Health for the past month. Now led by Githunguri Member of Parliament Gathoni wa Muchomba, Suba North MP Millie Odhiambo and Kilifi Woman Rep Gertrude Mbeyu, they demanded the immediate removal of Nahumicha, stating that she has failed to provide solutions to the problems within her department. Now, one of the women rep noted that mothers who can barely afford 100 shillings a day rely on the Linda Mama program, and any child or mother's death since the stoppage of Linda Mama card should be attributed to the CSO. That is the headline on the Standard this morning. Also, Mukuni Moi girls top in drama feat. Mukuni, Moi and Buruburu girls top national drama feat. Now, little known school beats giants in this year's national drama festivals. There was immense talent and competition on show as schools battled for honors. Now, winners in primary school include Visa Oshwal Primary, where there was a solo verse as well from PCA Kagema. There was a modern dance in primary from Kinango Primary and cultural creative dance from Migose Primary School. Now, winners in high school, in the play category, you had Mukuni boys. In the cultural creative dance, you had Buruburu girls. In comedy, you had County girls. For the narrative, you had French School Kamusinga. For the modern creative dance, you had Kangaroo School. And for the choral verse was Moi Girls Nairobi. Now, in TVET institutions, for the play, you had the Nyeri National Polytechnic that won the day. For the choral verse, Kiambu National Polytechnic. For the stand-up comedy, you had Kenya Eldoret Polytechnic. Spoken word was the Kenya Institute of Mass Communication. For the cultural creative dance was the Eldoret National Polytechnic. For the modern dance was Kiambu National Polytechnic. For the narrative was the Kenya Institute of Mass Communication. And for the mime was Nyeri National Polytechnic. So that is on the National Drama Festival. So those are the headlines. On top of the Standard, Kibunjia, others charged in ghost workers scandal. That was a story that we just ran a few minutes earlier. MPs reject Ruto's envoy pick for DRC. Why wage bill keeps going up? This is ghost workers issue that continues to crop up. Arsenal staff test in Munich as they are set to face Bayern Munich for the UEFA Champions League quarterfinals second leg. Now let's cross over to the Daily Nation. Ping pong as deaths spike. Ping pong as deaths spike. Paying with their lives. Hundreds of Kenyans are dying at home or in private hospitals and village dispensaries as the weeks-long grandstanding between doctors, governors, and the government over the posting and remuneration of medical interns escalates. Now, ping pong as deaths spike. That is the headline on top of the page. There's a doctor with a placard that says haki kwa daktari Mkenya lipa kama the chief administrative secretary, that is the CAS, lipa kama deni. So the health crisis continues and hospital mortuaries across the country report increase in number of bodies. Governors warn on the collective bargaining agreement. So the Nation has done, that story in detail in page 4, 5, and 6 of the newspaper this morning. Now, page 4 says, young man's slow and painful death as doctors watched. Now, Alex or Maxwell Maronda, a 24-year-old, wanted. Maxwell Maronda was a doctor and was wrong, or something was wrong with his blood. Now, Maronda instead was tossed from hospital to hospital as he wasted away. By the time he was told to move out of Mama Lucy Hospital in Nairobi and seek help elsewhere, it was too late. Maronda's tragic story is also heart-rending, ending for many Kenyans who are dying unheard and unattended as doctors and government fight over pay and other issues. Now, patients are unfortunate to be the pawns in this battle of titans that has dragged on for weeks as negotiations between the government and the medical unions drag on. So that is the unfortunate story about what is happening in hospitals. As you know, patients are moved from one hospital to another in the hope of getting attended to, or at least, being attended to by doctors, but that is not the case. As there are no medical interns currently working, they are on strike. Also, doctors are on strike, clinical officers are on strike, medical laboratories are on strike. And as they normally say, it is such a bad time to fall ill because you literally will not get help from the hospitals, or at least public hospitals for that matter. Also, on page 4, governors say Medic's demands will affect county functions if executed. Governors say Medic's demands will affect county functions if executed. The work boycott by doctors may be far from over as one of the teams that was to help, and it appears to have thrown in the towel. The Council of Governors says some of the doctors' demands can affect the functions of devolved governments if implemented. Now, the chairperson of the Council of Governors, Anne Waiguru, said county resources will be stretched if the national government implements the 2017 CBA as demanded by the KMPDU. In an extraordinary meeting that was held to review the situation, Waiguru said the amounts given to county governments cannot meet the demands being made by doctors. So this further plagues the service delivery in hospitals. Now, page 6 talks of bodies pile up in morgues as doctors' strike continues. Only contracted doctors who do not belong to the union have been working. Now, some hospitals have stopped offering cancer and other key services for lack of specialists. The number of beds, for instance, at the Coast General Hospital and Teaching Intensive Care Unit ICU was 11 and only 3 are occupied. Now, the effects of the deserted hospital hallways, wards, and the theatres are piling pressure on public hospital mortuaries, which are getting overwhelmed as doctors vow to continue with the strike. Also, top of the page, how police officer used his car to obtain 300,000 shillings loan. How a police officer used car in his custody to obtain 300,000 shillings loan, and that is a story that is on page 3, where the suspect allegedly got a logbook from a child without owner's consent. Now, documents in court show woman's car seized by auctioneers over a loan she wasn't aware of. That is interesting, quite a bit. So this is the headline on top of the page, ping pong as deaths spike. Now, finally, let's talk about the Star newspaper that speaks on the wage bill crisis. The controller of budget calls for hiring freeze. Wage bill crisis, the controller of budget calls for hiring freeze. What austerity budget boss says state should review recruitment of political appointees. Now, some counties spend up to 75% of revenue in paying employees' salary. So that means just 25% of revenue is perhaps left to, work on development projects in various counties. So the controller of budget calls for hiring freeze, review of political appointees to curb wastage. Margaret Nyakango sounds warning to county governments, asking them to stop new recruitments. Now, that is not just the situation within the county governments, but also the situation within the national government, where Kenya is facing a wage bill crisis with the bulk of country's revenue used to pay government workers. And it has emerged even as agitation for more pay grows. Now, the National Wage Bill Conference continues to be held in various, or at least was held for the last 2 days at the Bomas of Kenya, where, Margaret Nyakango, the Salaries and Remunerations Commission, was also present. The head of public service and chief of staff, Felix Koskei, was also present. As they said, what they'll do is not increase any more salaries. 2, the COB calls for hiring freeze, and the budget boss says state should review recruitment of political appointees. Also, top of the page, city traders decry lack of fresh air as roads made inaccessible. This is due to the heavy rains. Have you taken a step to go to Muthurwa Market, which gives you a better picture of the mess at Muthurwa Market, as traders go about their business at the dirty market, and they have accused the Nairobi City County government of neglecting its responsibility of making the place clean. So that is the headline on the top of the page, even as the Central Bank of Kenya Governor Kamau Thuge says the economy is on the right track. So those are your headlines. The Star, wage bill crisis. The Daily Nation, ping pong as death spike. The Standard, school fees, why MPs oppose e-citizen way. So those are the news headlines on the pages. All right, thank you very much for tuning in to the newspaper review. We'd love to take a quick break, but when we come back, we'll be getting into the conversation this morning that has got to do with pageantry, or at least what we call modeling. Now, this is a full-time career for some of the models. It's also a full-time job for most of the third world countries. Is Kenya on that track? Are they recognized as much as they should be? And what does this mean for some of these young people that decide to venture into this kind of world? So that conversation returns in a bit. Stay with us. We'll be right back.